Alright, what up my dudes? Today is Thursday. It's officially 6 days after the release of Rob Zombie's latest record, which I'm going to read off a script here that I wrote. The Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy. It is the 7th full-length album by Rob Zombie, along with his backing band of the past 8-ish, 7-ish years, with John 5, Gingerfish, and Piggity and Zeus returning as the producer and now as a songwriter on this record as well, alongside John 5 and Rob Zombie himself. Zombie and this incarnation of his band have been riding on a similar tide since Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor, even down to the artwork with a photograph of Zombie in the middle, some crazy outlandish artwork on the side, and a ridiculously long title that nobody can remember. I enjoyed the previous record tremendously. I thought that one's probably my favorite Rob Zombie record. And so I was a little hyped for this one with the same band, the same producer, and then of course John 5 was going on about this years ago when he was saying this was Rob Zombie's masterpiece, his best work to date. And then Rob Zombie did another interview kind of around that time and said that if it was going to be heavy, the song was going to go as heavy as possible. If the song was going to be weird, it's going to go as weird as possible. And although I don't necessarily agree with John 5 with this being Rob Zombie's masterpiece, I do agree with Rob Zombie that when it does come to a style of a song, it goes full send. King Freak, for example, which was the lead single, takes licks from southern rock, funk, hip-hop, techno, and even a hillbilly-styled banjo on another track, which is pretty much the entire song. A returning fan, familiar with his early work, or even a long-time listener, will be surprised to hear the twists and turns within this entire record, with many industrial beats coming back from the hillbilly area, or melodies that you perhaps heard last time on The Sinister Urge. Despite this being a fairly experimental and off-the-wall record with a lot of its songs, there's still a lot of similarities that you can hear with Rob Zombie uttering "We Are Not Alone" as heard on the previous Rob Zombie record, or even talking about boogaloos, which we've heard many times before. That kind of brings me to the oddest part of this record. So for example, John 5, when he does guitar solos, kind of leaves the horror-esque chunk behind and goes for a more proggy-ish sort of solo that you might hear on his solo work, on his instrumental work. And you can even hear a bluesy echo of some stuff that you might possibly hear on Grand Funk Railroad or perhaps a ZZ Top track. That's respectable. I think Zombie's finally letting loose and doing what he really wants to do, which is just make kooky, fun music that he's always been inspired by. But despite doing that, this LP's overall flow and vibe is off-putting and a little odd. The track listing alone feels a little unorganized, and even the interludes don't smoothly transition into the next track, and they're just there as more filler. Despite Zombie kind of going in and experimenting with things and trying new things out, it's still somewhat familiar. For example, I could just be bullshitting here, but Gingerfish's snare on one of the tracks sounds very similar to that of the fight song off of Hollywood by Marilyn Manson, which Ginger played on. And so maybe Zombie's taking some from his contemporaries, he's taking some from his influences, I don't know. But that's kind of the interesting thing. Without the typical Rob Zombie instrumental backdrop, it's kind of weird hearing his voice over these songs that don't really seem to match. Even when he does covers, it seems to be in his style. Whereas this isn't really tried and true ground that Zombie has done before. He's definitely plunging headfirst into the deep end, and sometimes he does it well, and other times I feel like he just doesn't really do it the right way. Like the Hillbilly song, for example, it just cuts to the ghost train part really abruptly, and it just feels weird singing over a banjo for him, because it's still all like in it, but it doesn't have that vibe to it. Even though Zombie offers a really creative and experimental record by wearing a lot of his influences on his sleeve and trying new things, with a solid band, wet production, and overall enjoyable experience, the record kind of lacks some songwriting and a nicely blended mix of the genres he's trying to do here. I think Zombie is as best when he has a cohesive vibe, when he has a clear-cut path, and that is not the case on this record at all. It's definitely him just throwing something on the wall and seeing what sticks, and sometimes it just doesn't. I think Zombie fans can look back at this in the upcoming years as kind of like a fun record to go back to and be like, oh yeah, that's when Zombie really just balls out. That was cool. But I think that as far as his best work, that's still yet to come. Although I do respect immensely how much time he spent on this record, what he did to this record, and as far as getting the vision he wanted executed, I feel like he did that excellently. Yeah, I think that's when he's at his best, when he's just doing Rob Zombie. And this, he's doing Rob Zombie, but it's not tried and true ground. It's not ground he's familiar with. So, respectable, kind of enjoyable, but overall, I was expecting a little bit more. So I give this album probably a 6.5, 7 out of 10. So, what did you guys think of it? Did you love this record? Did you hate it? Was it everything it was hyped up to be? I'd love to know with your comments. Yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay heavy, and have a good one. Bye, dudes.